voice and came up with this phenomenal system of government, how to deal with your wife, and how to run the state, and how to deal with one another, and akhlaq, and how to be merciful with animals, and all of this from an epileptic seizure. And no other epileptic ever has come up with something great. They all get seizures. No one of them heard anything else. He said, yeah, you're right. So you can argue with that and cross that. Madman? Okay, madman. Have you read the Quran? You're telling me a madman wrote that? Look at it. So you can argue each one with the message of the Quran, with the content. Yes, sir.
I've heard of the idea of a mental disorder specific for prophets. Mm-hmm. So prophets only, since they all have the same message, it's not because they hear it from Allah, it's because they all have the same mental disorder.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this mental disorder brings out this good message?
It's the same message anyway.
Oh, I see.
And so this is just the culmination of yet another message.
This was the same person who made this argument? Wow. So how do you refute, can we stay with this one? How do you refute this specifically? Shahada.
That's just a medical disorder common to one person. Like your asthma or your cancer is not related to the next person's cancer. So why does the Prophet ﷺ talk about Isa and Ibrahim and Adam and all the other prophets?
Ooh. Okay. So that's actually another section. When you look at, let me take the brother. Go ahead.
The Prophet himself questioned this. He was skeptic that he himself was getting married when he first got the revelation.
With Zainab radiallahu anha. Yeah?
With Khadija.
Getting married, you said?
No. He questioned the same.
Oh, receiving the message.
When he received the
Ahsan,
message. He thought, am I
Jameel, yeah, he himself thought of that. I'm sorry, I'm going to pause a little bit here and go into the message of the Quran. What can you tell me about the message, the teachings of the Quran that prove it couldn't have been written by a man 1400 years ago in Arabia? Number one.
In Surah Al-Baqarah, there's an ayah that says, if anyone can come up with a book like it, then you challenge them.
So the challenge, if anyone can produce a book like the Quran, has anyone been able to?
No.
You've seen some attempts, right? And they were all utterly ridiculous. Great. Quick point, yes? Okay, so basically you're trying to say the science in the Quran. True? There's a lot of science in the Quran. Very good. Yes?
The moral teachings and the scientific evidence.
Okay, scientific evidence, moral teaching. Give me something specific, Ahmad.
Specific, I say no contradictions.
Okay, that's good. No contradictions, Look, let me ask you this. Sorry, Zia. Think of it like this. If you told the Quran was revealed over a period of 23 years, yet it remains consistent, right? Isn't that a sign that it's not from a human being? What if I told you right now, start writing a book and finish it in 23 years? Is that book going to be the same? No way. You're going to start off, writing, not much contemplation, not much wisdom. As you grow older, and we shall do this, and your language improves. You use big English words like
Elephant?
And hippopotamus. So it would change. In 23 years, your writing would change, your wisdom would increase, you would go back and rewrite certain chapters. Quran remains consistent, even though it was revealed over a period of 23 years. That's a sign it couldn't have been written by some human being. What else?
Also, if I'm trying to pretend that I'm a prophet, I wouldn't write the Quran in 23 years. I'll try to get it done in a few months and say, here's your book for the end of life.
Most likely, right?
Because I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to live for another 20 years.
Okay. Yeah?
Rasulullah was illiterate. He couldn't write or read. So how could he write?
Well, what if someone says he dictated it to someone?
And also, how could he then know all the events that happened with the previous prophets, also future events?
Excellent. So the brother brought up two important points. Too much history to know back then, and then we'll take this point, and then we want to discuss future events. Yes.
He was an Ummi, and how could he write such a classical Arabic grammar?
He spoke well, though. We know that, right? He was the most eloquent, so he dictated it to people. They'll tell you. But the point on the future. Give me quickly some points about the future mentioned in the Quran. Yes.
in the Quran it says that the trees have sexes, male and female.
Okay.
And scientists have just
That's
discovered
true.
that 50, 60 years ago.
That's science. Stay with future. Future, something that will happen in the future. Hamza? Excellent. What with the Rome? Is that what you're going to say? Yeah? That the Romans have been defeated, and then they, after their defeat, they shall become victorious again in an odd number of years. And this was something in the future. And it happened. How many years later? 9. Just as the Quran said. This is a knowledge of the future. Prophet couldn't have known this. Right? Yes. Something in the future. Sorry?
How Pharaoh's body was, it said it was going to be found many generations.
How Pharaoh's body would have been found later on, would be found, mentioned in the Quran, it was found later on.
How time would speed up?
In the Quran?
In the future, later on.
Okay, sir, when we get to hadith, it says those things. Stick with the Quran. But you're right, though. You are right. Yes?
The earth rotates.
Okay, look, science, future. Things about things in the future. Muhammad.
Abu Lahab would be in hellfire while his wife.
Abu Lahab would be in the hellfire, right? That was what? It's a Meccan surah. But Abu Lahab died after the hijrah to Medina. So how did Prophet know that he was going to die as a kafir? That knowledge of the future. Only Allah could have known that. And Abu Lahab, to disprove that, he would just say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. He would disprove the Quran. But it never happened, this knowledge of the future.
She had
in the Quran, it was mentioned?
sorry, the split of the moon.
The split of, oh, okay.
You didn't know about it until the people came from that moon. And they asked them, did they see the moon that was split?
Okay, but that's a very powerful miracle. It's also, and actually there's a point coming with that. Jazakallah, very good. But we're just very busy. Look, I'll come back to the moon. Yes, future?
Victory of the Muslimin, and that was proven by the Badr.
Okay, also how about the conquering of Fath Makkah, right? Mentioned in the Quran. When? When was it mentioned?
In Mecca.
After the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Could you imagine that the Surah Al-Fath would come down on the way back from the Treaty of Hudaybiyah? The oppressive rules in that treaty? Again, knowledge of the future. So we'll stop with the future, but you get the idea why he couldn't have written the Quran, because it stays consistent for 23 years, never changes. The linguistic style of the Quran, the grammatical style, the challenge for anyone to write a book like it, and still until today it hasn't happened. Knowledge of the future in the Quran, science in the Quran. How about when the Quran mentions reproaches the Prophet ﷺ, or mentions a flaw or a fault of the Prophet ﷺ? Would an imposter write about himself like that? Do you think? Like Abasa wa Tawalla? He wouldn't write like that. He would write about himself as number one. Would he say verses like, that Muhammad is not but a human being? He would probably elevate himself, What else? Are we on faults or reproach? All the questions, sorry to cut you off again, but all the questions, they ask you about the Day of Judgment. You don't know the answer to it. Why would an imposter say that? He could make up some future day 300 years from now. He'll die, they'll die, nobody will fault him for it. Also, how about the fact that the names of Isa and Musa are mentioned in the Quran more than the name of Muhammad, time. How about that fact? You think of that? The name Muhammad, how many times does it appear in the Quran? 4 times. How many times the name of Isa appeared in the Quran?
23.
And Musa alayhi salam?
139.
28 chapters.
139? Like, an imposter, he wants to pump himself up, bring himself up to a high level, and he writes more, or not more, but he mentions other names of prophets more than himself. Does that fit the mold of an imposter? So the more you examine it with your non-Muslim friend, he starts to see that, this book doesn't look like an imposter wrote it. It doesn't add up. Why is he talking about other people? And I want to mention when the moon split, by the way. Why didn't the Quraysh, for example, look, the Prophet ﷺ, during Eid Salah, he would recite Surah Al-Qamar. Eid Salah, people come to pray Eid with the Prophet from all areas. All tribes, new Muslims, old Muslims, they all come to pray Eid with the Prophet ﷺ. He recites Al-Fatiha, and then he recites Surah